Hi guys, this is Amy from Welcome to Wonderland, and I am here with Craig and Meredith Amick. They are the owners of Hollow Creek Distillery, which we all know I love, and we are getting ready to go on a tour, so join us.
Follow along.
So we are here in Leesville, South Carolina, which is just outside of the Lexington area, not far from downtown Columbia. We are at Hollow Creek Distillery, and we are about to see where the magic is made.
Well, I didn't think about that. That's all right.
Sorry, this is what
You guys get to see, this is real life right here.
Right. All right, so everything that's kind of interesting or most people are interested in is kind of right here in this corner. The really fun part, we've got cooker on the right, still on the left, and a couple of square fermenters over here. And we'll talk through it a little bit here. I always use just a straight corn mash as the example. So this is an 800-gallon batch system. Each batch is an 800-gallon working volume, and in that batch for straight corn, we use 1,600 pounds. It's just a good rule of thumb, 2 to 1, that's a good place to start. And then for the cooking process, kind of the objective here is to take all your grain and literally cook it to pull the starch out, all right? And then we're gonna convert that starch to sugar. So just think about starch as a whole bunch of individual sugars tied together. So we gotta pull them out of the grain, and then we have to break them apart into individual sugars. That's what we need to ferment. So to do that with corn, we heat our cooker up to 195. We hold it there for 60 minutes. And that's enough to pull all your starch out. And then there's a couple of enzymes we use. Since we're using 100% corn as the example, you have to use commercial enzymes because there's no malted barley. So now you're looking at alpha amylase and glucoamylase. That's the two we use. All right. So like I told you, no secrets here.
So is there a automation to that process, or does someone have to come in here and they're like, start the timer, 60 minutes, like you're baking bread or something?
It's like you're baking bread. It's just a timer on an iPhone. That's it. It's like, so you can see this is very manual. It's just a steam jacketed pot. There's a temperature gauge on the front and steam line on the back. Literally, you open the steam valve, start it heating up. When you get to the temperature you want, you close the steam valve.
And Craig talked about putting 1,700 pounds of corn in there. This is what it looks like. It literally looks like grits almost. It's ground really fine. And I know we talked next door, but this is actually, the corn is grown and milled by a guy that we went to high school right down the road. So, local.
Right.
That's what happens.
So how much corn dust goes in there again?
1,600 pounds.
And somebody does that like bucket by bucket? Or?
No, so
or a little handful by Meredith.
Right, one handful at a time.
1,600
pounds.
We use totes. So you scale sitting right over there.
Okay.
You weigh out 1,600 pounds, and you take a forklift and hold it up over the manway and let it in nice and slow. Don't go too fast. So we're done in here, and the next piece is to get it transferred over to a fermenter and let it sit. So it's really not highly technical. You see the essentially the pipe coming out with a valve on the bottom. We just pump out of that tank into one of those fermenters. So you pump everything over there, and in your fermenter is where you're gonna add your yeast, get it mixed up really well, and just let it go to work. Okay. So the yeast, its job is to essentially eat the sugars that we made in the cooker and produce alcohol. That's what we're looking for.
Which is the good part.
It is the good part. And CO2, so it'll sit there and bubble.
All right, so now we are back into this machine and we're fermenting for...
Right, so you're fermenting. I like a really slow fermentation. It just, my personal opinion, it makes better alcohol, makes smoother alcohol, a little bit sweeter flavor profile. Kind of industry standards about 3 days, but it will ferment up to about 10.5% alcohol by volume. And then the same 2-inch transfer pump out of the fermenter into the still. Now, stills are what everybody gets excited about in this industry. And I get it, they're beautiful. This is not where you make good alcohol.
Okay.
All you do is reveal what you have done. So you either have good alcohol in your batch or you don't. So we run a hybrid still. It's an 800-gallon pot on the bottom, has a 4-plate column on top, small heat exchanger on top of the column. It's called defleg, and then the main condenser is on the left. So really what you're doing, You get your mash pumped in, you heat your still up. You have to get above 173 degrees where alcohol boils. And then you'll start to get your alcohol to boil up out of your pot, go up through your column, and you'll start to get alcohol come out of the condenser. And then over the course of the run, as you decrease the alcohol concentration in your pot, your boiling point actually goes up, and you can kind of track how far along you are on the run just by the temperature of the pot. And you'll cut it off before you get to 212 degrees because you're running out of alcohol. That's the boiling point of water. You're getting close to just having water left. We started out with 1,600 pounds of corn, or 2,200 pounds, or if we're making bourbon, and we're going to end up with roughly 150 proof gallons. That's 150 gallons at 100 proof. If you're talking in bourbon terms, it's roughly 2.5 barrels of bourbon.
One thing I think you didn't say is, so distillation is essentially any time it goes from a liquid to a vapor. That is a distillation step. And so the first distillation really comes out of the pot because it's going from a liquid in the pot up into a vapor. And then each one of those little bubble plates that looks kind of like a submarine, each one of those, if they're open, that's another distillation. So if you put something in there and then keep all those open, it would be 5 times distilled coming out. Now something like a whiskey or a bourbon, you're only wanting 2 or 3 times distilled. Something like a vodka, it's going to have to be distilled more than 1 time through this, more than 5 times. So our vodka actually goes through twice, so 10 times distilled to get that.
So when it comes out of here, then if it's going to be a bourbon, it's going into one of the barrels, I assume.
Right.
Yes. And if it's going to be moonshine or if it's going to be vodka, where does it go?
Either into one of these kind of plastic totes here. It's got to go into something inert so that it's not going to take on any flavor, right? So a tote or a drum. And then if it's, unflavored, it will just go as is. We proof it, get it ready to go. If it's flavored, we'll add a flavor.
And so then we go over to the barrels.
We got to talk about the aging process at some point. But yeah, you certainly want to get, there's a tag there on the front, 9/17/16. Here, let me see if I can pull some.
And it's got the proofs on it. So these tags here tell you the barrel number. So talk to us about the char.
So let's talk about that. That's my favorite part. Come on over here. I'm a science nerd, so come on over this way. So everything that comes out of a still should always look like this, because if it doesn't come out looking like this, you got real problems.
You really screwed
so
up.
anytime you put some sort of product in a still and you distill it, really what's coming back should look clear like this here. But this is the 4 year, so you can see after 4 years how much color it's pulled out of the wood here. So to be a bourbon in the United States, you have to be aged in an American white oak barrel. And so this is a white oak barrel, char level, I believe this is a 3, and this may be a 4, but you can see, and this one's a little dusty because it's set here, but they call this alligator skin, and you can see why. So this one never had alcohol in it. Now this one is the same char level, but it had alcohol in it, and so you can see the little crumblies have broken off, and that would be inside the barrel, but that's very helpful, right, because it helps you age, and helps get that flavor and that color out of the char. So to be a bourbon, you have to be aged in a charred oak barrel. Now, this guy has this dark line here. That is the soak line. That's how deep the alcohol is soaked into the wood. There's no kind of sealant on these barrels. It's just the wood kind of swells and seals itself. Their bourbon barrels should be self-healing. Every now and then you have one that might continue to leak, and then you're going to have to swap it out. Now, so our High Cotton and our William are both aged in a charred barrel, just like this. William is what they call toasted barrel finished, and this guy is actually a toasted barrel. I know it doesn't look like much, but this one actually gets hotter on the inside than the charred ones do, because this is done with infrared. That's another question that I get is, do we char our barrels here, or do they come to us charred? They come to us charred. Our insurance company appreciates us not lighting things on fire.
We've got enough flammable
stuff going on. So, but this guy is done with infrared, so this gets so hot, and you may, I don't know about on the camera, but you probably see it with your eye here. There are a couple of sparklies on here if I kind of move it around. Those sparklies are where the wood has gotten so hot that the sugars have crystallized out of it. And so toasted barrel finished bourbons theoretically are a little sweeter because you have that little bit of sugar. So the one that we're tasting that's almost 9 years old, is a toasted barrel finished William.
All right, so we have it in barrels. You finally decided spin in the barrel however long you're gonna leave it in. So then we're in bottles and then y'all are selling. So I think that's probably the whole thing then, right?
That's it.
Pretty much.
All right, well, I think that is all that we have today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you are anywhere in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, the vicinity, be sure you stop by Hollow Creek Distillery in Leesville, South Carolina. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Craig.
Here, y'all step in.
All right.
We're all friends here.
All right. Sweaty friends in this hot building.